Welcome back to Morning Break, and this month's A Good Biz segment with Lindsay Bradley, the owner of Guided Arrows. So thank you so much for being here. You know, it's interesting. We talk about this in our newsroom all the time, that for communicators, we're often really bad at communicating, but I do feel like that is a very common thing among many industries. Why do you think communication, especially from a leadership standpoint down, is so difficult?
I think we often tell ourselves we are good communicators, and we're just making these assumptions that, yes, I did tell someone this, or I got whatever was in my brain and I told them. But it's like we're asking them to read our mind.
Yes.
So for some reason, I don't know, it's just, it's one of those things.
Especially when you, I guess maybe when you bring in the fact that everyone has different interpretations of things and stuff, you know, what you say might be interpreted a different way by the person who hears it and stuff, you know, and so there's often miscommunication. But there are some things that leaders can do to really help them within their business. So let's talk about some of those common mistakes that people make. And the first one you already mentioned is that oftentimes people just assume that their mind can be read.
Exactly. You know, we may think that we gave clear direction to someone about what you wanted them to do or what the expectation was, and you're like, oh, go do the thing, and you really didn't like break it down and then check for understanding is what I say. If you're going to give someone direction, say, here's what I'm looking for, here's the result, what questions do you have? But instead we're just like, okay, run, go do it, right?
Yeah, and that's where those like, you know, vague, fuzzy terms can kind of like really throw people off, where it's like it leaves too much room for interpretation.
It really does, and I think it's important to empower people to, you know, give them those tools and the clear direction to create an outcome that you want. And so if you're being, you know, vague about what you're expecting, you know, then the result is not going to be what you want it to be.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we're trying to avoid in this segment. Is we really want our business leaders and our business owners and our entrepreneurs to really feel empowered that they can lead a team. And one of the things that can be difficult for a lot of people, and I would say even most people, because we don't like confrontation, is feedback. Even if it's with the purest of intentions, we want the best product, we want to be able to have everyone on our team succeed. Giving feedback is so hard.
It really is, and I think it comes down to, we've been taught that, you know, the term constructive criticism, and I'm like, who likes to be criticized? And so we have this negative connotation with feedback equals negative. And so that's why I like to remind leaders that feedback shouldn't just be coming up when something went wrong. It should be catching people doing something right. It should be rewarding those behaviors that you actually do want to see.
Makes sense.
And really flexing those muscles and practicing as a leadership skill on how to give feedback in both scenarios where you need to redirect, or you need to give praise to your team member about what they did right and say, yes, this is the behavior that I want to keep seeing, and that's the behavior that will be repeated if you are using that opportunity to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, because when you think about it, we've all been in a situation where, you know, we only seem to have interactions with our boss or our manager or our supervisor when there's something that we've done wrong, and that can be really demoralizing. It can lead to a lot of discontentment, and it can lead to a lot of like, well, is there anything I'm doing right? Am I even in the right fit? Do they even want me here? And so being really intentional about saying, you know, the positive things too is really, really helpful. And I've always heard the term the compliment sandwich and stuff, but you're actually going to kind of switch that up on us and change it up, because the compliment sandwich is good, but it's not great.
It's not, because what you're doing is you're kind of going back to that fuzzy language comment of you're confusing the person that you're giving feedback to. So if you're coming to them, you're saying, hey, you're doing a really great job. Oh, by the way, you really blew that report or that presentation, and okay, well, great job. Have a great day. It's like, what does the person think about, like, did I do something wrong or did I not? And so that's how that compliment sandwich works. And so I really like to use a framework to really break down feedback into 3 components. So situation, behavior, and the impact. So describe to the person the situation that occurred, get really specific to give them context about the conversation. And then behavior. What behavior did you actually notice? And making sure to use those I statements, or things like, I noticed, you know, this happened, as opposed to saying, well, you did this, because that's automatically going to put someone on the defensive. And then impact. Describe the impact that it maybe had on, if it was you in particular, how it made you feel, how it made another person feel, the impact it may have had on the organization because of the behavior that happened, and just really sticking to the facts and not making assumptions about the motivations maybe behind the behavior.
Yeah, and I always, my dad always gave me the advice too of like, it's really important to kind of be curious first, judgmental second, right? Ask what they were thinking. Ask maybe why they did the thing that they did and stuff. Because I think if we assume good intent, you know, we can maybe buffer a lot of negative confrontation, but at the same time, you really need to understand if people are coming into a situation with pure intentions and stuff, like they just made a mistake, and that can often lead to how you want to correct that behavior in the future.
Exactly, and I think that's why it's really important before you have a feedback conversation is to ask permission to share feedback. Don't just go in guns a-blazing and give feedback. Like, is this a good time for us to have a feedback conversation, or can I share something with you? Because it may not be the right time to do that. And so I think that's really important to ask permission, and then also ask yourself, you know, give them time to say, here's my perspective, what's yours? Tell me what was going on in that moment. And it's that way, it's just not, you're just not forcing that conversation on someone and allowing them to feel heard in that moment as well. And then come to a conclusion about what do we want to see moving forward and agree on what change looks like.
Absolutely. So you gave a lot of great advice about what leaders can do, but I love how you kind of ended this, that there is a responsibility on the employee or the person receiving the feedback to also be open to it, especially if you're coming at it with the goal and the knowledge that we all want to succeed, both as a business and individually. So Lindsay, thank you so much for this advice. We really appreciate it. All of Lindsay's business information about guided arrows will be on our website, colotv.com, along with this interview. So if you missed anything, you want to take notes, go ahead and check it out after our show. We'll be right back.